Hand cannons are up next, and we'll start with Hawkmoon. We talked about Hawkmoon recently, but I never actually gave it a rating. In PvE, I give it a B+ to an A, and in PvP, I give it a B+. In PvE, since you're typically able to get into ideal range, the power that it had in Year 1 is basically maintained in Year 2. However, its main problem is the fact that it can run out of ammo so quickly and almost requires an ammo bonus on your chest armor for it to be usable. You'll need to keep an eye on your ammo and will need to have some spare primary ammo packs around just in case, because it will become a problem. In PvP, I couldn't give this an A if I was giving stuff like Suros an A-, since I'd be more likely to choose Suros over Hawkmoon for a typical PvP match in the current weapon meta. Hawkmoon isn't really the problem is that hand cannons themselves got significantly weaker in Year 2. When in the ideal range, Hawkmoon is still the same old Hawkmoon from Year 1, able to 2-shot with a luck in the chamber proc, and otherwise kills in 1 headshot and 2 body shots. Should hand cannons ever get a slight accuracy or range buff, then you will see Hawkmoon come back into the rotation. Ace of Spades gets a B+ to an A in PvE and a B in PvP, although this was highly contested. In PvE, this is basically the next generation of Fatebringer, which was highly regarded as one of the best weapons in the game, if not the best. However, much like Hawkmoon's problem, it runs out of ammo pretty quickly, maybe even faster since you don't realize half the time that you're burning through so much ammo because of the Maverick bonus. It is one of the most efficient weapons in the game, but make sure you have a hand cannon ammo bonus to go along with it. In PvP, it's basically just another hand cannon. The Maverick bonus is not a selling point, Firefly is not a great selling point, so you're just left with a hand cannon with third eye. I would not use Ace over Hawkmoon for any reason at all. However, some people gave this a slightly higher rating because at the end of the day, it can still 3-shot and kill somewhat quickly. But at the moment, I don't think it's very deserving of anything higher than a B to B+, especially since I gave Hawkmoon a B+. The last word gets a C in PvE and a B+ to A in PvP. In PvE, this weapon is a complete non-factor. In a world where hip-firing the weapon is the preferred method of use, this thing is just not going to perform very well at all. Low on the damage spectrum, very inefficient, plus the hand cannon's ammo problems is just a recipe for disaster. There is almost no reason to use this weapon in PvE, and it very well may be the worst PvE exotic primary weapon in Year 2. In PvP, it has been seeing a small resurgence lately. With the popularity of shotguns still very high, Last Word can make very quick work of people attempting to charge you. It is also pretty good in ideal fusion rifle ranges, making this thing a menace up close. However, it's definitely not possible to cross-map snipe people like you used to be able to do. This weapon had some highly contested rankings among my polls, ranging from C+ to S tier, so I must say that your skill with the weapon will greatly increase or decrease your personal ranking. Some players are very good with the weapon, and some struggle immensely. I know I've seen my fair share of complaining about the weapon during the Chaperone quest. The first curse receives a C+ in PvE and a C+ in PvP. While definitely a better weapon than the Last Word in PvE, that really doesn't say much. It's a gun that's designed to reward precision shooting, but doesn't really reward you that well. It may have very high impact, but when things like Hawkmoon or Ace of Spades can also one-shot headshot the same things, that overkill is absolutely useless. It might be able to hit from farther, but you can typically set up engagements in PvE to your liking, making that range bonus not as important. I know I gave this the same ranking as Monte Carlo, but for the record, Monte Carlo is a little bit better. In PvP, it simply fires too slowly and can only kill in 2 headshots under very, very specific conditions. Considering on average it'll take 3 shots to kill someone, the first curse main bonus is only going to apply for, at best, 5 shots, which is not really a lot. When something like Hawkmoon already exists and can 2-shot with some frequency, well, there's not really much reason to use this. Finally, we'll hit scout rifles. First up is the Boolean Gemini, which I am giving a B+ to A in PvE and a B to B+ in PvP. Boolean Gemini is one of the most under-the-radar weapons in the game. It is a 37-48 variety of scout rifle, which is the most popular and very efficient. It comes with aggressive ballistics to be slightly better in the damage department as well, and 19 shots is nothing to scoff at. However, the fact that it can be replaced by something like Hung Jury SR4 makes the weapon less appealing because you don't use your exotic slot when using Hung Jury. Hung Jury is also easier to upgrade because it doesn't take exotic shards. In PvP, it is a scout rifle. Plain and simple, it is a low recoil scout rifle. While scout rifles have gotten more usable, they still aren't quite there yet with the exception of some of the bigger maps. Even with its low recoil, the bounce of the weapon can obstruct your view slightly, making follow-up shots a little more difficult. Beyond that, it is a scout rifle, and I can't really give it any more props than that. I only acquired Jade Rabbit very recently, so my experience with the weapon is limited. My peers gave the weapon an A in PvE and an A in PvP, but my rating is going to be a little bit lower, a B+ in PvE and a B to B+ in PvP. The fact that you need to shoot to the body goes against every natural instinct that I have in this game. I want to shoot things in the head, but I know that if I want to use the weapon efficiently, I have to go to the body first, and the damage bonus from stacking shots is not enough for me to care to adapt to a new playstyle. It certainly is a viable weapon still, its damage output is pretty good, but requiring to go for the body just does not sit well with me. In PvP, this is a great weapon for more passive players, able to kill in 3 headshots or even 2 headshots in a body shot. However, I don't agree with the A rating because if it really was an A, I know I would be seeing this thing way more frequently. Scout rifles themselves aren't on pulse rifle levels of good, and slower firing scout rifles only punish you more if you miss. The slow rate of fire archetype has never really been that popular in PvP, and the Jade Rabbit doesn't really change my perception of that too much. The Tlaloc, or Tlaloc, however you say it, has a variable rating, B+ to S, in both PvE and PvP. Obviously, the differentiator in this equation is that when you don't have your super, it is just a 37-48 variety scout rifle, which is a good variation of the scout rifle archetype. When you do get your super, that is when this thing takes off. Its potential damage output skyrockets, able to outdamage nearly every other primary weapon in the game. When you have your super, I think it is potentially the best PvP weapon in the game, putting out scout rifle damage in nearly auto rifle form. It absolutely tears through people, and I cannot recommend it enough. What I would recommend the most is using bad juju to spike up your super quickly, then switch to Tlaloc. Obviously, the only negative is that you can't use your super, so you need to weigh the opportunity cost of how many super kills you might get versus having the super for weapon kills. It's not wrong to use your super if you have a very good place to use it in, though. In PvE, not using your super, especially as a warlock, is not really a big deal, meaning you can be at your maximum primary power for very long periods of time. Last of the primaries, it's the Touch of Malice, also with some variable ratings. In PvE, it's getting a B+ to S rating, and in PvP, I give it a B. In PvE, it has the potential of being the highest damage dealing weapon in the game. When you can set yourself up for success with the Touch of Malice, then nothing else even comes close. Blessing of Light spam enables the power of Touch of Malice, Daughters of Oryx, and Oryx simply get melted. In those times, when you can set yourself up for success, that is when the weapon is S tier. In other, less ideal times, it is still incredibly powerful, but you need to keep your eyes on your health a lot, which can be very distracting and can slow you down in terms of damage if you're in a bad situation. In those situations, it's not as good, and I would rather use something else, so that's why its ranking is situational. In PvP, I rarely see it used, but I still feel like this weapon has some potential waiting to be tapped by top tier players. It can kill very quickly, but if the person on the other end is an accurate shot, then you're simply just assisting the enemy in your own demise. You need to have on-point shots in order for this weapon to have a lot of success, and is generally not worth the effort, at least right now while the weapon still remains dormant in the meta. Will it ever show a higher power? I guess only time will tell. Those are your primary exotic tier rankings for the Taken King as of patch 2.0.1.1. I let a lot of the rankings be slightly more flexible than previous rankings. A lot of these weapons, almost all of them, could have arguments made for being bumped up or down half a ranking, but in general I feel that this is an accurate representation of the current exotic metagame. We'll talk about special and heavy weapons very soon. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.